and I cannot stress this enough, is that none of us should be traveling until A, we have learnt to monitor our own nervous system, or track it, as people say, and B, we have learnt strategies to be able to regulate it in the moment as a result of tracking it and knowing what nervous system state we are in. And here's why that's important. So I was heading to this conference, and I actually had a conference, a mastermind, and then a meetup in about a 2-week period. I was going to spend the in-between time working from my hotel room, and I was very excited to start the beginning of a more nomadic lifestyle again, which is more natural for me. And I was just getting everything together, closing the suitcase before the taxi arrived, and I realized that I couldn't get all of my medication in, and at the last minute I had to scramble and change my whole suitcase to a slightly bigger one, and obviously that put my body into fight or flight. And I remember sitting in the taxi being in fight or flight, not knowing what to do, being on the aeroplane and in the wheelchair assistance, feeling very uncomfortable, not knowing what to do. And of course, when I got to the conference, which was in Jacksonville, Florida, my body went into a crash, and it took me a little while to get out of it again, largely just by resting in my hotel room. And I was able to go to most of the conference, thankfully, because it was a smallish hotel and it was all in the same place. And also because everybody at that conference was an expert in co-regulation. So every conversation I had was nurturing and warm and regulating, and that really helped my nervous system. Was also incredibly important that I went to that conference, because at it I saw a presentation by Dr. Amy Apigian, who runs a program called The Biology of Trauma, which I enrolled in a few weeks later, and that was how I then came to know how to track my nervous system, what specific somatic practices are helpful to me, and how I was able to then go on and write my book and create my course in terms of specific to long COVID. The other thing that happened during that trip, I mentioned that I was a few days on a mastermind retreat. And again, whilst that was incredibly enjoyable and informative, of course, the person running the mastermind was not a psychologist or trained licensed therapist of any kind. And as very frequently happens in settings like that, they asked everybody on the afternoon of the first day, as one of the exercises we were doing, to share in some detail an episode that brought us the most shame that we have ever experienced in our lifetime. And basically what that exercise is trauma dumping. And my highly sensitive and very, very susceptible nervous system absorbed all of that trauma. And of course, I went into a crash. I had to skip the dinner that evening. And again, I was feeling pretty awful for most of the rest of the next day. So being mindful of the type of travel that you are doing. If you are going to places that are likely to trigger trauma, if you are likely to come into contact with people who are likely to trigger trauma, these things can have a huge impact on our nervous system, which can make it very difficult for us to then be able to continue in a trip. So thinking about those things, thinking about where you're going, thinking about who you're going with, are just as crucial as if you are recovered enough to be able to make that trip. So thankfully, I enrolled in that Biology of Trauma program a couple of weeks later and started my journey of learning much more intimately my own nervous system and which strategies work for me in terms of regulating it. And obviously that was an ongoing journey, and each year I have incrementally seen improvement in terms of my ability to travel and to function. These days I do still use wheelchair assistance, but primarily by choice, so that when I arrive at my destination I am suitably rested and can enjoy my time and do a little more at the destination in terms of kind of a pacing strategy. I am no longer at the point where I have to use it, and feel absolutely horrific symptom-wise while sitting in the chair, except for occasionally, and I've had a few things that I've done along the way that I know I shouldn't have in hindsight, that then again I was very thankful to have the chair scheduled. So to talk a little bit about the trips that I have done, really since I turned that nervous system corner and have been more able to modify things as I go along and take care of my nervous system as I go along. And if you are somebody who follows me on Instagram, pretty much all of these I posted to stories and then put the stories in highlights. So if you want to go back and see some of that stuff, it should be there. And I'd certainly created a couple reels about my nervous system and how I was feeling. So if you want to see those things and kind of benchmark them against how I seem now. So May 2023, I flew to Japan. And Japan had not long opened up to tourism at that point. I took a gamble about a year before and booked a flight, thinking hopefully I will be well enough to travel and hopefully Japan will be open. And because I've been here before and it's a very accessible country and I have a lot of friends here, it worked out as an incredibly good trip. I did have one significant crash. I got to Kyoto and the second day I basically felt like I had a virus again, which is my classic PAM. Couldn't get out of bed, had to cancel my plans, had to cancel where I was going to subsequently. But that one day resting I was okay, and then I was able to get on the Shinkansen back to Tokyo the following day and do a little bit of time in one of the Disney parks the day following. But really just to highlight when we are traveling the importance of flexibility and rescheduling stuff, cancelling stuff, rejigging our itinerary in order to accommodate any symptom flares or crashes. Then I must have done a few other trips that year, but they're blanking on me now. New Year's I went to Hawaii, which again was wonderful. Flew to LA and then did an overnight in LA and then from LA on to Hawaii. And I did 5 days in Oahu and 4 days on Kauai, which I hadn't been to before, with a rental car in both places. And I had not been back to Hawaii for 25 years, so it was amazing to be back there and to see Hawaii again. It's a place that I, again, enormously connect to, and partly because of so much Japanese influence, and partly because I've spent time with really good friends there, and just feels very special to me. So that was a wonderful trip. Did I have any crash days? I mean, I was relatively on the go, having a rental car. I wanted to get out a bit and then flying between the two islands. I think New Year's Day, I did just keep it very easy by the pool. And that was maybe a teeny bit crashy, but not so bad. Definitely no big nervous system triggers, and that was very important. But of course, being by the ocean, being outside in nature, all of those things are going to be helping our nervous systems. Then the following 2024 March, I did a trip to Doha and then Muscat, and then up into the mountains in Oman and then over to Dubai. That was a wonderful trip. No crashes on that trip, but I was very careful to schedule it of 1 day travel, 1 day sightseeing, 1 day rest. And that is really where I honed that formula, which you've heard me talk about a lot. Again, I picked that place partly because of that time of the year. It's very warm. You can sit outside very easily. When I say very warm, I mean obviously for that part of the world it's quite cool, but mid-20s or mid-80s Fahrenheit, which is comfortable. And very accessible and very thoughtful people who are very kind, much like in Japan, in terms of accessibility needs. And then last New Year's, I did the Bahamas, which you will have seen me make reels about. I didn't love that hotel. It's just not my vibe, but hugely accessible. As you have seen me comment in various reels and things, I think that resort in particular, if you are someone who wants to dip your toe into travel again, But even though you're technically leaving the US, you're not really leaving the US. You don't have to worry about currency conversion. You go through TSA even before you get through at the airport at the Bahamas. So there's a lot of US kind of crossover. Obviously, everybody speaks English. Everybody is very US friendly. There's a Starbucks in that resort. There are lots of American friendly foods. So it is a place that you could go if your nervous system wasn't as recovered. The only caveat I would say, and this is something that I think comes up a lot, and again is really important with regard to your nervous system, something that most of us have never thought about before we got sick, but is a huge travel consideration now. Airports are enormously overstimulating, and unless you are wearing blackout glasses and blackout headphones and sitting in your wheelchair just doing nervous system regulation non-stop, it is very hard to get through an airport without your nervous system being activated a little bit. And so if you haven't done the work and your nervous system isn't able to easily move through the states, that is going to be triggering and you are going to be activated, which means that then you will go into a crash. And the other thing to say about that resort in the Bahamas is that it is very busy and very stimulating. And so very similar processes could also happen to you. Although I was there on New Year's, so it was incredibly busy. Maybe if you go on a random off week in February or April, it's not like that at all. So to summarize, when am I ready to start traveling again in my chronic illness journey? Well, you are not ready to travel if you are still crashing after social events and spending time with people, or even going to the grocery store, going to a doctor's appointment, that kind of a thing. Because obviously, if we think about travel, it is going to be several days of the equivalent of that in a row. And that is not going to be feasible if you are still at that point. You are also not ready to travel if you don't have go-to strategies to help re-regulate your nervous system. And I don't mean that they're perfect. I don't mean that your nervous system has to be perfect. Our nervous systems have gone through so much. I don't think we may ever get back to a normal person's kind of consideration, but we need to be able to deal with fight or flight in such a way that it's not inevitable that we're always going to crash when we experience it. And you're also not ready to travel if you're looking for the trip to fix your chronic illness, to deal with your grief, to deal with your symptoms, etc., etc. While nervous system expansion can be a huge part of travel, it is not the solution to our issue. So if you are looking for it to be, this is not right for you. However, you might be getting close to ready or already be ready if you are extremely good at tracking your nervous system and knowing what nervous system state you are in. You might also be getting close to ready if you've had a stable-ish period of time in which you haven't experienced a crash, and I guess what we kind of sort of call a stable kind of baseline. And I throw all those caveats in there because, of course, that language is a little bit imperfect and unhelpful, but I think you know what I'm talking about because that's how we all talk about this stuff. You are definitely in a place where you might be ready if you know how to support yourself in real time. So not travel related, but nervous system related. In the period of time that I have just described, starting in 2022, I also did an awful lot of public speaking about long COVID, primarily on Zoom. And it is amazing how quickly our nervous system goes into fight or flight when we are talking into a camera live with a bunch of people watching us. And I definitely noticed that that would take me quite a few days to recover from. even if I had strategies like getting up afterwards and shaking it out or dancing it out or what have you. Contrast with presenting this last week live in person at Musashino University. I didn't even need to shake it out. I didn't even need to dance it out. I was a little bit tired afterwards, came home, went to bed early, but that's primarily because I was traveling last weekend and teaching at 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning. And now I'm fine. Yesterday I was fine. So that is a huge development in my ability to notice my nervous system, but also to support my nervous system. And those are the things that we're looking out for as indicators that we are ready to travel again. You are definitely ready to think about traveling again if you can plan your trip around rest and sensory needs, not just having a checklist of things you want to check off in the guidebook. You will notice that I repeatedly reference this, that even though my capacity has increased enormously, there is no way I'm going back to traveling in that old way. It is always going to be in this new way. And the bottom line, something that we don't talk about enough, but is the most important thing here, you need to be able to put yourself first and have boundaries in terms of putting yourself first. So not only does that pertain to the trip, where you need to be able to say, I can't come with you to the beach today because I'm going to lie here in the shade or inside in the air conditioning, but that also pertains to before the trip. If you are not able to say, no, I can't do that, and no, I can't do that, you won't ever make it on the trip. And of course, none of this then is going to work. And if you are watching this video and you are thinking, what on earth is she talking about? I don't know how to track my nervous system. I don't know how to regulate my nervous system. Now she's telling me I have to do all of that before I can even go on a vacation. Don't panic. I have a whole other YouTube channel that I spent 2 years putting together when I was working with people with chronic illness directly as a coach. And you can easily hop over with the link below and watch as many of those videos as you would like for free. Obviously, the fun thing about YouTube and the algorithm is that they are not in any kind of organized fashion, because you have to release a different video on a different topic each week, otherwise the algorithm won't pick it up. But if you want something that is systematic and in order, do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, I have a book that I wrote that explains the whole thing and is relatively affordable on either Kindle or regular paperback. And again, I will link that down below. And if you want some more in-depth support that kind of takes it a little step further than the book, I have an online course. I will link that down below, but just what I want to also say about that. I am fully aware now, with 2 years of hindsight, that when I released that course in 2023, I was not at my best when I created it. Partly I had not learned editing skills, and so some of the videos are a little bit poorly cut together. And also because it took me a hell of a lot of spoons to put together, and nowadays I can do those kinds of things very easily. So what I am doing now that I have these new fabulous editing skills within the capacity of my energy that I currently have, and still allowing myself to enjoy Tokyo, is going back through and re-editing it. And I am planning for the beginning of September to re-release it with a refreshed version. So if you can hold on until then, you will definitely get a lovely refreshed version. Although what I'm going to do is that the people who are currently enrolled and have not finished, I will grandfather you into the new one, so you will still get to see the new one even if you enroll now. Whew. I am aware that I am suddenly speaking faster, probably because I had wanted to get through all of this for you. And finally, to say, if you have listened to this video and you think you are ready to book travel, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would be more than happy to book you an amazing trip that builds in all of these things. And if you are not quite there yet, please enjoy those resources, and I look forward to talking to you when you are. I hope you have a great week. I will see you back here next time.